Ahoy, everyone! Welcome to my presentation. I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about lots of things, apparently how to manage your community. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. How fun! So let's kick things off with just a tiny little brief explanation as to who I am. So I'm Cole Couture. Many of you probably know me as MiniToon. I created a small game known as Piggy, and yeah, that's pretty much all I have. You know, don't need to go into too much detail. Let's just hop right into it. So yeah, today I'm going to be talking to you about how to manage and maintain a magnificent community. So here's a little breakdown of what we're going to be going through and talking about. So we're going to start things off by discussing the importance of understanding your consumers, why it's important to get into your consumers' minds and kind of get an idea of what they like in your product, whatever it is your product is. Yes. A breakdown of the different goals of community managers, what you should try to be and what you should try to aim for. I'm also going to be sharing my experiences with community management, aka my successes, my shortcomings, and lessons that I've learned. And last but not least, I'll give you a little walkthrough of how to properly manage your community and create positive results/outcomes. A general how-to guide, if you will. So let's kick things off with understanding your consumers. Why is understanding your consumers important? Well, your consumers are instrumental to your product success. They are consuming your product, after all. They're the force that drives your product to greater lengths and future engagements. So if you have a good product, then you'll get good responses from the consumers and community surrounding it. Without understanding your consumers, predicting what people would want would be essentially a shot in the dark. We're all biased to some extent, especially when it comes to our own product, because it's like our child, we made it. And there's no understating that. That bias really comes into play when we try to brainstorm by ourselves what we think people would want. With that being said, we'll only be able to truly think from our own point of view and not necessarily the point of view of the consumer. So at that point, it's taking a chance based on your own perspective, a chance to see whether or not your prediction is true or false. So typically, you don't want to take chances. You want to be sure that they'll like it, that they'll enjoy it. With that being said, in a situation like this, there tends to be a general disconnect between you and the audience. So no communication. You're not really talking to each other. You may not even know what your community is even like. So you can't get any useful information such as what they like, what type of people use it, essentially your consumer's demographic. Unless, of course, you use analytics, which we'll get into later. However, with analytics, there's no voice attached to them. Your analytics can't really give you details and specifics about what people enjoy about your product. And if you don't listen to your consumers directly, then audience engagements and interactions are going to be pretty minimal. After all, why should they engage themselves and interact with your product if you don't even interact with them? If you don't listen to them, then why should they listen to you? Interacting with them allows them to create a relationship between you and your product, thus giving them a reason to keep supporting both it and you, as well as a reason to talk about it and share it with others. But without listening to them, support is essentially non-existent or not useful. So if they come to you with an issue and you don't really listen, then you'd probably get more useful advice and help out of a brick wall. If you're not going to listen to their pleas for help, then what's the point of your product support? To ruin someone's day or to waste someone's time? Anyway, now that I'm over ranting about the negative side of things, let's move on to the positive and allow me to explain why you should get to know your audience. So if you do listen to your audience, then you'll receive useful feedback and suggestions on how to improve. Your audience knows what they want more than you do, probably. Well, definitely, because they're the one using your product. Because you aren't your audience. We've talked a little bit about bias at the beginning, and it really shines through here. You want what the consumer wants, not what you want. In addition, they'll be pretty honest and upfront with you, so you'll be able to get the information that you really need from them. Knowing your audience can also help improve relations with them because it can establish connections and relations with your audience. And those connections bring you closer together, giving them more of a reason to be honest with you and to trust you. It's also going to extend the outreach of your audience, aka spreading awareness. Why? Well, because people are going to be talking about you and your product. They like being listened to, and that's going to become very apparent to you very quickly. It'll garner attention from their friends, their families, and others. So, as this little kid here says, I enjoy being listened to, because who doesn't? Now we're going to move on to the goals of a community manager. So, what should you try to aim for? Well, you want to provide quality service and support. You're going to want people to feel happy and at the very least satisfied. I know a lot of people really resent going to customer support services because they often feel like it's a complete waste of their time, myself included, often. Uh, but you want to make sure that they're like more than glad to have spoken with you by the end of the conversation. You're also going to want to have positive public reception, be a good public figure, example, influencer, whatever you want to call it. Don't get canceled, don't say offensive things. People are going to look up to you or look at you in a positive light. So you want to make sure that you're a likable representative rather than a distasteful reason to stay far away. Don't be a deterrent. Instead, aim to be an encouragement. And by being an encouragement, you're going to naturally attract people from outside your community to come join. Keep the majority of your audience up to date with news from you or your brand, and keep your consumers engaged. I believe that is the next point. Yes, right here. You want them to keep talking about your product. You want them to keep interacting with you and your product as much as possible. And, last but not least, keep your audience happy. So prevent wars in the comments, spread positive messages, make their day. So with all those little goals in mind, I guess we can move on to our next topic, which is going to be delving into my personal experiences with managing communities. So first and foremost, where do I manage communities? Well, here are two of my places that I like to manage: Twitter and Instagram. They're very good for posting news, doing polls and votes, and seeing fan creations. In addition, being able to communicate information in a single post really helps to simplify communication between you and your audience. So it just makes things a lot easier. In addition, I also use Discord. It's also great for news, but better for community discussions where users can share their thoughts, ideas, and their experiences with other users. So a great place for them to connect. Having a chat server and or group for your consumers helps direct them to other people sharing common interests in your work. I also use the Roblox fan group method. Another great way to get update news and information spread around, especially since it's directly on the Roblox platform, makes things very convenient and pretty simple. But more places equals more people sometimes. Having a presence in as many social medias as possible helps to spread your product even more as you're able to reach out to more people. However, there is a little issue with that. Not everyone has the same apps. Oh, sorry. No. I'm going too far ahead in the future. Let me slow down and go back. And not everyone has the same apps. Some people are going to be on Twitter. Others are going to be on Discord. Being in multiple places at once helps create links between the apps, as well as additional links to your brand. So you should treat them as kind of an extension of your brand. But why do I say sometimes? Why more places, more people sometimes? Well, that's because your community is no doubt going to be more active in some places than others. You don't need to be everywhere at once. And truth is, you can't. So never feel pressured to be everywhere. After all, you can't be everywhere at once. So it's just the way things are. So aim to have a notable presence in the more populated or active apps, because that's where your presence matters most. And that's essentially where you're going to be making the biggest difference. And I did a little diagram here showcasing that. If Roblox is the majority of where your product community is, then you're going to want to focus more on spreading news or information to that first. So now on to a bit more personal stuff. So my successes. I've had great success managing the Piggy community, especially engaging them with teasers, which make them theorize what's going to happen next. The finale of Piggy Book 1, searching for the true ending, brought a lot of people from the community to work together and solve this mystery. I thought that was a lot of fun, too, to be a part of and throw them occasional hints and all that stuff. I've also learned through that and, all the other occasional things in Piggy itself is that mysteries attract and retain your customers as their curiosity and desire to learn more is amplified. We're human beings. We're designed to want to learn more. So knowledge is powerful, and using that to your advantage can really help out at times. However, there were many shortcomings that led up to my successes. One of the first communities I managed was that of my older game, Containment Breach. It was also a horror escape game. It was my first experiencing with managing a community, and I did it really, really bad. An example of something I would do is if I got like the slightest bit of criticism, they would be getting the ban hammer right away. Didn't matter if you like said my socks looked bad, you're gone. It was pretty brutal, to be honest. I was not a nice guy. Luckily, I had friends like Ideas and Optic to help me out with managing it back then. Both of them work on Piggy today with me, and Optic occasionally engages and manages the Piggy Twitter community to this day. So it's awesome to have those people with me, stick by me after all these years. Now, how do you know if you're doing a good job? After wanting to improve, do better, be better, and keep myself in check, I've designed a basic checklist to see whether or not I was doing a good job as a community manager. To this day, I still use this checklist to make sure I'm on the right track and doing a good job. I always have days of like self-doubt where I feel like I'm just doing the worst job. I'll look in the mirror and ask myself, am I a good community manager? Am I doing my job well? And what makes me a good one? So this list really helps to like pull me back out of the shadows of self-doubt and into the loving arms of reality. The first point is, am I bringing people together? Avoiding controversial statements and all that. After all, your job is literally to bring people together and not tear them apart. If you're doing that, congratulations. You're doing great. Keep it up. You're doing your job. The second question I ask myself is, does my community admire and respect me? Do they look up to me? And if not, what can I do to win their trust? What can I do to change my approach and become a better community manager? And overall, a more likable person? Asking yourself these questions will no doubt help you improve both your community managing skills and maybe even yourself. So, on to my lessons. What did I learn? Well, I've learned to handle criticism a lot better, whether it be positive or negative. I've also learned to keep my emotions in check when in the workplace and when engaging with the community, so I don't let them get the best of me and potentially harm my proper decision-making skills. Because I'm feeling sad, it might bleed into my work, so I make sure that, all of that is left outside the door, gone. And once I go into community manager mode, I have no sad emotions, none of that sadness. It's just, I want to make people happy. That's that. In addition, I've also learned that doing everything on your own is incredibly difficult. And having people help you is very, very important. Like IKEA's and Optic, I honestly would not be where I am today without them. So shout out to them. If you're listening, guys, I love you. If not, I still love you anyways. Now on to the next topic, which is becoming a community manager and being good at it. So here's a mini guide that I've set up for you guys on how you can be great community managers. So one thing that I like to do is I take notes from successful communities. I look into what works for them and what doesn't, and I see what I like most out of their communities. I also take notes of things I would do differently. So if there's something that you really like that this particular community does, well, then integrate that idea into how you would want to approach managing your own community. Obviously, there's the other side to that, where if there's something a successful community does wrong, and it's very apparent that that's the case through cancellation or whatever, then don't incorporate those ideas into your action plan. Stay away from those. Not very fun. My next little step is to set up and observe analytics. Identify your main demographic. This helps to identify who your product is for, so you can target the proper demographic that enjoys your product the most, which in turn will help track engagements. Example, for clothing, check which products sell more. This one's pretty specific and particular to what your product actually is. So if it's a game, then you would track your visits, your products purchased, all of that. If it's something like, a clothing store, then check to see which items do better than others. In addition, you should also track followers and members leaving and joining your community. This really helps keep track of the overall community engagement and health. So on the next slide here is an example of observing analytics for my Piggy Twitter community. What you're looking for here, besides likes and retweets, the usual good sign stats, as I like to call them, is to ensure that people aren't talking about your community and you in a bad light. A good sign of this is if you have way more quote tweets than likes or retweets. This usually shows that, well, yeah, people are discussing your product or you, they're probably not painting it in the best light. So yeah, try to look out for that stuff. So the next step is establishing rules and guidelines for you and your community. Have rules for yourself to keep yourself in check. So refer to the checklist I've shown earlier. Am I bringing people together, and does my community respect me? What rules do I need to make for myself to ensure I can complete this list or check it off? Also, have rules for your community so they know what to expect. A little tip is to try and think of as many rules as possible before implementing them. A lot of people don't like change because new is often scary. That goes without saying for almost about anything. Trying new things is pretty scary because you have no idea what to expect of it. As a result, changing rules might be pretty controversial from the community at times. So your rules are also going to attract and deter people. That's pretty normal. As long as you aren't super strict or completely insane. Like an example, you can only join the community if you send a video of yourself hopping on one foot for a minute. Like that's ridiculous. It's something I would probably do, but you should not do. Just kidding. Just don't make any like crazy rules that make no sense. Another thing, have a social media presence. So this is going to be a bit of a summary of what we talked about earlier. Being able to speak to your audience in a post simplifies communication between you and your audience, and having a chat server / group for community members helps direct you your audience to others sharing common interests in your work. And communication is key, after all. You want to be talking to these guys. Now, here's an important one. Dealing with trolls. So one thing to keep in mind is trolls just want to provoke you and your community into displaying negative emotions. That's what they want to do. There are many ways of dealing with trolls, but the first step is to determine whether or not a troll is, someone giving criticism or not. If they're giving feasible advice on how to improve your product, then they're not really trolling you. But if they're not, if they're just saying this sucks because it sucks, like, why does it suck? It just sucks. That's a troll. Don't listen to them. Don't give them the light of day. So what's the most effective way of dealing with them? Well, if they're a troll, then just ignore them or just block them. Why is that? Why would you do that? Well, that's because they crave attention and reactions out of you and your audience. The best way to deal with them is to give them the exact opposite of what they want, the silent treatment. They want to provoke emotions. They want to stir things up. So how do you avoid that? Just get rid of them. Bye bye. No conflict here. There you go. So yeah, that's how you deal with trolls. And I would like to give many tips on community management. Community management. So something important is talk directly to your audience and supporters, have conversations with them, and of course listen to them. Listen to your audience and supporters. In addition, make them feel welcome. Accept everyone regardless of who and what they are. Honesty is the best policy, so nobody really likes a liar. Um, Here's some more tips. Make sure that that you're grateful for them. Thank them every now and then. Because the truth is, without them, you wouldn't be where you are today. And I always be sure to tell my community this. If it weren't for each and every single person supporting me, I wouldn't be here. It's thanks to every single one of them just playing my game, or even just like watching a video on it, or just acknowledging it. It helps me go a long way, and I appreciate that deeply. And I seriously could not be any more grateful for that. So that's something to keep in mind. Treat your community as an extension of your product, because they really are one. If like, once again, this goes back to the other point. If there is no community surrounding your product, then your product's just kind of like a hollow shell. They're the ones talking about it. They're just kind of like, they're advertising it, but they're also, exploring this whole, whatever your product is. And, basically without them, your product is not where it could be, or not, it can't really go to greater lengths. And an important thing is, it's okay to take breaks. A lot of people, myself included, are worried that if we take breaks, people are gonna be like, "Oh, no updates. I'm done. I'm out. Goodbye." But no, it's okay, because guess what? Your health is important. Your mental health is very, very important, and your physical health too. So make sure to take care of that, and make sure to take care of yourself first before you can take care of your community. And one last thing is to remember that anything said by you on the internet stays on the internet. So this is probably the most important one. That's why I highlighted it in red and made it all caps, even underlined and italicized it, because it doesn't matter where you say it. If it's in a post, a tweet, or even DMs, anything you say can be used out of context and or against you. And it's very scary, but it is very, very important for your own sake to avoid being canceled in like 5 years from now. I don't know. Just be very mindful of what you say to others, or whatever. Just be careful and be safe. So now I'd like to go over some examples of brands that manage their community really well. An example is Adopt Me. They use their communities to their advantage by requesting feedback and acting upon it, along with maintaining a consistent weekly update log in order to keep their fans informed, which I think is really, really awesome. They know when they're getting the update news, and they're also listening to their community using like a Discord channel for feedback. Another one is Roblox. Their TikTok account in particular, I think deserves a little shout out here, is they engage with their community and spread positive and sometimes hilarious messages to their followers and user base. Highly recommend you check them out. I love the people working on the TikTok account. I believe it is Ruben, so shout out to you. And also the just everywhere as well. I use Twitter here as an example because they also like to shout out and bring attention to community events, events that aren't really organized or funded by them, but rather the community themselves. And I think that's really awesome and keeps them engaged. So yeah, those are some fantastic examples. And with that, we come to our closing notes section. So the community management helps to create important connections between you and others in the context of your game, group, product, and it forms deep levels of understanding. So your product is a shepherd, and your consumers are the flock. Without the flock, what purpose does your product serve? And community management also provides you with a way to reach out and expand your brand to greater lengths, as well as an opportunity to meet many new people and grow as a person, maybe, just like I did.